He squinted in the sharp sunlight refracting through the windows of the bus and watched the scenery sliding by. The streets, avenues and roads, all with different names but uniform in appearance. Perhaps some houses gave more of an impression of opulence than others, or the road curved at an obtuse angle, but a stranger wouldn't notice any diversity in the bleakness. The bus ground its way along the busy thoroughfare, stopping for traffic lights and pedestrians, an agonisingly slow progression. He looked at the people round him, tired-looking women with shopping bags, an old man in a flat cap and faded mackintosh, a boy with his arm in a sling, all silent, carried along on a bright autumn day. It had just gone 12, yet because of the light, the stuffy warmth, the subdued sounds from outside, it felt like 4 in the afternoon, and the rocking motions of the bus lulled him into drowsiness. An ambulance screamed by, and he idly watched it negotiate its way through the traffic. When it had raced off into the distance, he wondered if he could still hear its sirens, or was it his imagination? The vibrating of the window catches and seats made it difficult to be sure. The further the bus travelled, the emptier the streets became, and when he finally left the bus, only 2 other passengers alighted with him. They moved off in opposite directions, and he stood alone on the wide pavement watching the bus pull away, its engine rising in pitch until the next gear was reached and it turned the corner. He began walking. Ahead of him, a vast junction where endless streams of traffic roared. On this side of the road stood shabby council houses. On the other, a row of shops. He descended into the chill echoes of the public subway and emerged into noise and swirling dust as the lorries blasted by. He looked in the shop windows as he passed. A tiny newsagent's, a gentleman's hairdresser's. The photographs of men modelling hairstyles from years ago were fading to a monochrome blue. They stood dustering between displays of plastic combs and pots of hair cream. The barber stood by his vacant chairs looking out with hopeless eyes. A disused post office, windows boarded over, then an alleyway that had been utilised as a dumping ground, the inevitable stained mattress and used condoms. A cat prowled amongst the wet newspapers and rusting tins. He looked with a horrified fascination as he passed. It was as though the squalor had been placed there specifically for him to witness. This was what you thought you escaped from and what waited all those years for your return, and all the time in between became fragile memories. He turned the corner and passed his infant school. This was coming home, back to the fear and the tension, the smack of stick or the wallop of slipper, the question from the bullish teacher. And shocked by memories, he shrugged his shoulders and walked on, forever forbidden, forever excluded of a world that accepted innocence. He turned the Yale key in the lock of number 3, and the whiff of stale carpet was like a slap in the face. The coffin lay parallel to the window, nudged against the radiogram. He peeked like a voyeur and said nothing. There was too much to say about nothing. Climbing the stairs, the hand finding the forgotten familiar holds, the half-turn on the landing, the brush of the door across the carpet, into his old room. A single overhead light with a pink shade, a battered second-hand dresser with a central mirror, a pressed tin ashtray by the bed. The room was purely functional, a space to be used, then left and forever forgotten. Even if a death had occurred here, not one speck of ectoplasmic atmosphere remained. Only your personal memories haunted this room, because the unloveliness disinterred your agonies like a grave robber. He shivered in the cold air and moved to the window. Warehouse roofs, a dim courtyard full of cars. Beyond, the northern lights of a factory and some railway sidings. Somewhere in the sprawl of buildings, a steam hammer pounded on metal in rapid bursts. He sat on the bed and looked at the one picture in the room, incredibly Goya's Duchess of Alba, a cheap print picked up at some street market. He gazed at the delicate naked form, and pain crept up and squatted on his shoulders. He recalled the scent of almond trees and a touch of warm flesh between his fingers, the soft gentle voice, and for the first time in years he allowed himself to weep. His shoulders heaved and the tears ran down his face onto the candlelit bedspread. He pulled himself into a hunched position and caught a glimpse of himself in a mirror. A pathetic animal hugging itself and rocking backwards and forwards on the edge of a bed in a dingy room.